whether it's the Board of Supervisors or Community College District or Concord City Council or Mount Diablo School District or any of the other sort of local tax measures. So it's the thickness of the book can depend on how many things you're going to be considering to vote on, but that book also has an opportunity for all the candidates to, hi, my name is Herbert, I'm running for Concord City Council, I like dogs, long walks on the beach, and Netto. Whatever is on, everybody has a chance to say their little stuff on there. So it's an opportunity for the candidates to, put their best foot forward, or worst foot forward, I guess. I mean, who knows? So, and included in that guide is also a sample ballot. So it shows you like exactly what's going to be on your ballot, so you can see if it has all the different races on there. So the next step that happens if you, on our timeline, is about 20, also on the back of that book has, if you are a polling place voter, it has where you're supposed to go. It'll have, so let's say I'm supposed to go vote at EJ Fair. So it tells me, Paul, your polling place is here. So that's a way for us to contact the voters to let them know where they're supposed to be going. If you're a vote by mail voter, it doesn't have that because you don't have in our system, we don't have you going to a polling place. Because the way, like vote by mail, our assumption is we're sending you a ballot and you're going to return it to us. So that's why the distinction. We'll get calls from people, how come it doesn't say? So that's why. And also on the back of the ballot, it also gives voters the option if they want to request, they can request from that booklet, they can tear it out and mail it back to us. It says that they want to get their ballot by mail. It gives them the option of if they want to do it either one time or permanently. Any questions as we're going? Yeah.
This may not apply to this group, but the other day I was at a meeting for something, and somebody said that it's good when you send your ballot in as early as possible, because at that point then, like, there's this huge election going on, and people are going to stop calling you, like, hey, you need to get out and vote, you need to, is that correct? Have you ever heard that? I was surprised.
Anecdotally, yes. It's not
I don't know,
because what happens is the way it's been explained to me is once we receive a ballot back, we receive your ballot envelope back and we can verify it. We are able to establish what we call a voter history. So it says, Susan returned her ballot. So when parties or people who are trying to contact voters, they request to get a list. They request to get a list of who's still out there. They'll get one, and since Susan already voted, that history is not going to have her on the list anymore. So yes, it is possible to not.
If they're constantly asking.
If they're constantly asked, yeah. If they would have gotten, if they get a list from and they're going off of a list they got 90 days before the election, there's still a possibility. So it's hard to say definite yes, but more than likely, if they're going to keep getting updated lists because they don't want to waste their time reaching out to people who've already voted.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, so it would be great if I could use that as a promotional tool to get people to vote early, especially because sort of in the room here, so you guys understand what we're dealing with. We're getting more and more people in Contra Costa County and throughout the state who are voting later and later. They want to wait and see, I want to see if, this person's going to get arrested before election day. I want to see if I want to wait and see what that last mailer they're going to send against their opponent's going to say. People are.
Whatever Access Hollywood comes up with.
We don't have a lot of Access Hollywood or TMZ here in Contra Costa, but I mean, yeah, that's exactly what they're, that last second thing. But it's sort of but it puts us in an awkward position because we're getting more and more ballots right on or right before election day that we physically can't count because we have to go do other things like getting polling places ready. So that's one of the challenges. And so we like to tell people the earlier the better because we can get more results ahead of time. But we're just acknowledging that's a trend that's out there. We don't want to, we can advise people to vote earlier, but at the same time, I still would just rather have people vote period rather than not. So that was a good question though.
So I have a question to see for our community listeners, what would be helpful for you? One of the two choices is either registering online or on paper. Is there something that is preferred for you guys and the reason for that? And the other one was same thing, voting by mail or voting at the polls. Is there one that's preferred over the other? And what do we tell people?
Generally speaking, it's for us, it's been doing the online registration because it's easier to process. But having said that, I know if you're going to be out in the community, you want to make sure that people leave having registered, I would imagine.
We're going to do it on their phones.
Okay, well then,
away.
That's good too. You're using their own technology.
Yep.
I would say the main thing from a let's get as many people registered as possible standpoint is making sure that people don't leave your table or you leave their kitchen or whatever without them having registered.
Right.
So what we found is I've done a lot of tabling when we've done events is, I always feel a little bit uneasy when people take a form and they say they're going to fill it out later. I know how I am.
You forget.
Or you're like, you after you've gone to that festival, you're like, you have a handful of like 12 things and you're like, okay, I don't want this one. I don't want this one. So that's just me. As far as vote by mail versus at the polls, obviously we pride ourselves on being able to provide the best customer service for both. We won two national awards last year for making our polling places more accessible. So we're proud of that. But having said all that, we're really trying to encourage people to vote by mail because we feel, and I think this would be something that you guys can share some of the positives with your folks you're talking about in the community. We feel that vote by mail is way more convenient and fits, I think it fits more of our Contra Costa California lifestyle. Because if you think about going to a polling place on election day, especially if we have a lot of people here who are commuters. So you might be getting back here to Concord, like let's say 6:30, 7 o'clock from a day at work where you were in traffic all day. The last thing, my opinion and what we've sort of been at one of our talking points is if you're at home and you put your keys down and you're relaxing and you have other family obligations some people might have or other things that are going on, do you want to go back out to your neighborhood polling place and perhaps have to stand in line for a few minutes? I know there are a lot of people, when you say that, they're like, oh, of course, that's how I voted for 40 years. Why would I not want to go out to? But the ability to not have to worry about all that, to get the ballot in your hands 4 weeks before election day, and to be able to study everything that's on there, there's a lot of benefits to it. And the state of California and our office, we've done a lot of things to eliminate the excuses about turning a vote by mail ballot back in. And what I mean by that is there's a new law that kicked in starting the beginning of this year where postage is no longer required on vote by mail-in. It used to be you would have to scramble to find how many stamps it's going to require you to mail it back in. If you were to, and the ballots are getting increasingly thick, so that cost is getting more and more. It's not a ton, but still, if you have to, it's two less things to think about for people. And we've also added lots of about 3 dozen drop-off boxes throughout Contra Costa County, mostly at city halls, but we're adding a dozen for starting in November and March that are going to be available to people on a 24/7 basis. So the ones that we did have inside city halls, they've been used in great numbers. So we had about 2,000 people use them countywide in 2014, which sounds like a lot, but not when you compare it to the last election. We had 89,000 people who dropped off a box at City Hall. One, they liked no stamps, not having to worry about stamps. They liked that they didn't have to worry about the post office losing their envelope. And it's because those boxes are serviced by our staff directly. And they also liked if they were able to go to City Hall the city clerks, who are our local elections partners, they all have I voted stickers. So people, in theory, they were worried, oh, I go to the polling place because I want to get my I voted sticker. But in theory, if you sign up for vote by mail and you go to the city hall and drop it off, you get to vote early, you don't have to worry about lines, and you get your I voted sticker. So that sort of tends to appease a lot of different things. And this guy had a question back here.
Yes. I don't trust voting by mail.
Okay.
So I have heard that many ballots have been found, thousands of ballots have been found in garbage can after elections, okay? And I wanna make sure
Sure.
that my vote
Counts.
is counted, and I
Okay.
don't trust the system.
I see.
So I vote in person, I will never, because this voting by mail is easier for me and other people.
Sure.
But what is easy is not the best thing.
Right.
So what I care is that my vote is counted.
Okay.
And considering so much corrupted people in the system,
Got it.
I don't wanna take a chance.
Well,
And I advise other people to do the same that I do.
I understand.
Go over there in person.
I understand. Well, first of all, I can point to what I said before, that we value and we take voting in person very seriously. So if I can't get you to change your mind,
No, you
that still
won't.
works. Okay. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Where did you hear about the ballots and garbage
In
cans?
the news, all over.
Oh, so then it must be true.
It's, of course,
What
most
about-
of the news are true.
Okay, no, that's fine.
I don't believe
That's fine. Well, let me tell
the
you.
lie of
So-
Donald Trump fixed news.
No, I
I don't
understand.
believe that.
Okay, so one thing is sort of the validity of the source, and I know, I can only speak for what happens here in Contra Costa County. That's where we are. And I know that I can tell you that our process for vote by mails, well, first of all, we don't dump any in the garbage can.
I don't say you.
No, I know.
But it has happened many times.
Okay,
Why should I take a chance?
I'm gonna tell you full disclosure, before I came to the elections department, I used to work in the news. And I know, I used to work for the Contra Costa Times.
But you know that happened.
I can't say that,
And
but I can say,
Oh, you don't listen to the news?
no, I can say is that not every news source is credible.
And
I get it.
But some it is.
I get it. It sounds like I'm making excuses, but yeah, you're right. That's fine.
You
So,
making excuses.
but I can tell you for everybody else here is you're trying to, obviously we want to encourage people about what's going on. The one thing I can tell you is when you well, first I'm going to tell you guys about why vote by mail is actually, there's no fraud that goes on, and it's actually more reliable than at the polling. Well, I would invite you to come down to come to our
I don't
office.
have to watch it. I listen to the news, man.
Okay.
I know what's going on.
Okay.
What do you think we got the news for?
I
To
think,
inform us of what's going on that
Frankly-
we cannot find out.
frankly, I think the news sources you heard about the garbage can stuff is probably full of crap.
Yeah.
That's what you think.
No,
But the majority of people don't think that.
yeah, I understand. I'm gonna sidetrack here, go back to explaining what you guys need to talk to people about.
Yes,
And
thank you.
you and I, we can talk after online about it.
Okay,
Or-
no,
I think
no.
we're just gonna have to agree to disagree.
Of course.
Okay, so,
I report that the polls for, and even the ones that they're about to discard, they don't throw them away, they put them in a different.
yeah, that's correct. So, that's a good point. So at the polling place, what she was saying is like when we discard ballots or people make a mistake, we still keep them all so we can make sure that they're not disposed of out in the public. They're disposed of in our secure
I'm
location.
not talking about the ballot box.
I understand.
I'm talking about the mailing.
I understand. I'm just saying it's the same care and process that happens at the polling place happens with vote by mail. But I understand. So this is a good segue. I was going to ask you, so let's just throw it all out there. What are some of the things that you guys hear about the elections process and voting that troubles you? Or what are some things that you hear out there that I can tell you that you're kind of wondering about? Yeah.
I'm gonna give you an example. This
Yeah.
is my personal example. I've been voting for years, and we have been living this current address for the last 9 years. And I have to change my name, legality. And then when I registered I've been registered to vote for years. And so I went to vote and my name wasn't on the list.
Okay.
But I used to be on the list, so they didn't find my name. I went to another poll. They didn't have it, so they said, well, the only place you can go, and it's, what is it, that you can vote, but it's not
Provisional ballot.
provisional.
Yes.
I said, I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna be driving, the whole time. So I voted there, but I didn't feel good. So I went back the following time, and I still not there. So, learning from you guys is that if we change address, last names, or even signatures, it will make a difference.
Yes.
So
If
when
you-
I registered last time, I went on the phone and I spent a lot of time because of the lack of trust,
Mhm.
because of what I heard. So, I said, okay, this is federal information. I'm gonna enter my driver license. But they were asking me for my social security number. Well, okay, federal, I will enter it. But then at the end, before I submit it, they say, do you want us to recognize your signature that is registered on DMV? Are you familiar with that question?
The signature, that's what?
That is registered
Yes.
on the DMV.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. I'm like, is that the last one? Maybe that's why I'm not on the polls. I mean,
Well,
maybe that's why I wasn't
the sig-
registered.
It would have been the signature. It would have been, if you, and this is something to tell people too. If you get,
Uh-huh.
oh, I'm already registered. If you've changed your last name, or if you've changed addresses, then you have to re-register.
Yeah.
Because it's like when you change, when you move and you have to get a new driver's license. You have to, we don't track when people move. So where our information and our being able to communicate with you and send you your ballot and your guide and everything is only as good as the information, the last information we have.
Mhm.
So if you've changed your information, you need to let us know so we can modify it.
So it was good that I have the driver license.
Yes. And
So I could check my signature,
Yes.
which one was registered.
And the other thing,
Okay.
the other point that triggered something I should mention, if you're, back to your question, Herbert, about online versus your paper registration. When we try to identify people by their signature, whether you go to the polling place and you sign in first, or whether you sign the back of your vote by mail envelope, if you registered online, the signature that we have on record is your signature with the DMV. If you registered on paper, that paper signature is the signature we use. Which is important because we found a lot of times some of our younger voters, they'll register online and the signature we have on record is when they were 15 and a half or 16 and they got their driver's license. So they want to go back now, maybe they want to come back and vote, it's like when they're 22, 23, they've changed their signature as we all used to do 50 times since then. They need to make sure that their signatures match. So that's one, because if they don't, then we're unable to verify their vote by mail envelope because we're looking and let's say, the P in your name, you looped it back when you were 16 and now you just write it straight. We're not sort of in the role of being investigator. We're just going to say that doesn't count. So that's one of those ways being able to verify a signature, how we can prevent fraud too.
For me, it was reassurance that I felt like, okay, so this is really something that I can trust, federal with DMV, so I can, okay.
Yeah. The other thing that you brought up too that I was the idea of provisional votes. And there's a lot of misperception we've heard in communities throughout Contra Costa County and elsewhere where people feel like if they vote a provisional vote, it's not going to count. Or it's only going to count if it's a close race, or it's not going to count if we've heard all sorts of different things about that. So the best thing I can tell you is a provisional ballot is supposed to be a fail-safe, and it's a really good thing for making sure that all voters get to participate. Because what it does is Luz, we couldn't identify you, but you still have the opportunity to vote. What a provisional means for us is once we're able to process all the ballots that came to us from polling places and all the ballots that came in the mail, then we can go back and make sure we can count all the ones that came in provisional. And if people tried to do a provisional and they had already voted by mail, then we don't count the provisional. It gives us a chance to basically some time to verify and everything so people don't double vote, and we can make sure that people who, for one way or another, they weren't on our roster, but they were eligible, then it still counts. So that's one thing where a lot of people are skeptical about those and whether they count, but really it's a way of ensuring that everybody has a chance to participate.
I have the same question, not doubt, but question. When one of my city council members was running, and I voted for him, and I went home, I was watching the news, right? So we're gonna wait, and then they were celebrating.
Yeah.
And he didn't win. So, wait a minute, I thought with my vote, we will make the difference, it
Right.
didn't matter. So I felt like, oh.
And that's one of those things too, like when I was telling you in the very
But I need to learn that
beginning when we were talking about all the different overlapping
Yes.
races and stuff and the number of ballot types, the best way we can tell people to ensure that they're able to vote for everybody they're supposed to vote for is to go to the polling place we're telling them to go to, or to make sure you get your own ballot in the mail. Because if you ask for your ballot by mail, you're 100% assured we're going to get you the right ballot.
Okay.
So that's one way to sort of make sure if you really want to vote for that person, you want to pick that option.
So I did register and I asked for my mail.
Okay.
For this time, I'm not gonna go.
Good.
Driving.
So where did we leave off after we sort of deviated from?
First, I wanted to check, because I told everybody we would be here between 4:30 and 5:30. It's 5:35. If you guys have other plans, I know it's Friday evening. Just wanted to do a quick time check to be respectful of everybody's time. I wasn't sure how much more you wanted to cover as well. I know there's always more and more stuff we could always cover, but I wanted to see what you wanted to cover and then see if there were any more questions. And then
I'm pretty open. I'm just trying to get a flavor of what sort of questions you're thinking.
I think what you're giving us is really great. I would say everybody should probably bring some paper registration forms.
Yeah.
But
also have the links available.
Yeah, have the links. Use your phone to practice, so that when you're trying to help them navigate to register to vote on their phone, you can do it relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And I really think we're just gonna have to figure out what questions everybody else has, and then almost figure it out.
A couple of things that you can do as far as reassuring people, as far as obviously if you see your ballot go into the machine at the polling place, it's being at least scanned in it gets scanned in onto a memory card, and then the memory card goes to our office at the end of the night. So that people are pretty cool with seeing if it goes to the machine, it counted. As far as vote by mail, a couple of ways that we have available for people to track is we have a ballot tracker option on our website. So if you drop it off at a city hall or if you mail it, give us a couple of days and then you can check to make sure that we've received it. So if it does get lost in the postman's seats, like I mentioned earlier, or this gentleman back here, if he's saying what happens to him between transit to our office, you can follow up with us and rest assured that we've received it. And also, feather in our cap, I guess, we're really good if you directly want to call our office. We are kind of better than if you're trying to call AT&T or Comcast or trying to get it. We'll answer calls pretty quick without putting people on hold. So if you want to just give us a shout, like a quick, hey, did you get my ballot? We'll look up your information and then you'll be satisfied and good to go. So that's something. We really want to make sure that we provide the best customer service for everybody, and we want everybody to feel rest assured that when they vote that it's taken seriously and that it's counted accurately and everybody's vote counts the same. So I'm trying to think of Yes,
Two things. First of all, where can someone go to see if they're registered to vote?
good question. Also on our website.
On your website,
On-
not not a state website.
I'm not sure if the state has a lookup tool, but I know we have one, and it's, if you just go to cocovote.us,
Okay,
and there's a button on the upper right-hand corner that says my voting information.
okay, so if we're out talking to
Yeah.
people, we can, because people don't
Right.
know, and they don't know if they've been purged, they don't.
That's true.
Okay, and then the second thing is, you've got somebody who at some point went and got their driver's license and registered to vote, and then that now you're talking to them and it turns out they're not registered any longer, but they're at a new address, they have not notified the DMV of their new address. Is there some kind of an override or something that takes place? How does that work? If you're trying to register somebody to vote and they're mailing their physical address doesn't match up with the DMV address.
They can just mail, if they've changed their address, they can just mail it to us. We're not going to cross-check with the DMV.
Okay,
It's an
perfect.
independent process.
Okay,
For our purposes, we just need to know where to mail things.
okay, so it's not there, this state DMV thing is not gonna override the.
No.
Okay, perfect.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Question, how long, maybe this is, how long before the voting, it's a person who must be registered?
Good question.
How long before?
Good question. We have, in California, we have, the voter registration deadline is 15 days before the election.
Oh, okay.
So generally, it's a Monday in like mid to late October.
Okay.
Now, having said that, there's some new changes to California law that allow for what's called conditional voter registration, which means, and this is why I said, when I was saying earlier about, it's very important, we want to get people registered as soon as as much as possible, because from our planning purposes, that's like our RSVPs for the party. We know how many people to expect at a polling place, we know how many people to order ballots for, we know how many machines we need, we know how to divide the roster so we don't have lines that go out the door, and enough parking and everything else. But having said all that, conditional voter registration means you can, if you've never registered before, or your registration's out, you can show up at a polling place on, it actually used to be just show up at our office on election day, but the state law is still changing every day, even with this last election cycle, last bill cycle in the Senate and the House, where the rules are going to be where you can show up at any polling place and be able to register and vote on the spot. Now, for us, that works the same way as the provisionals we were talking about. We still need to take a breath, wait until everything's done, and then we can make sure we process all those. But it does give people the ability who missed the deadline or weren't able to,
Okay.
they decided at the last minute voting's important to them to still participate.
All of a sudden, what? Is
Yeah,
this?
it dawned on
What day
them.
is it?
But
So they can
But
still.
having said all that, we still want you to get people to register, because that way they can get the materials that we produce too, so they can find out what's on the ballot. It's especially if you're able to contact people early. The League of Women Voters and some of our other community partners do a lot to host televised roundtables and produce information about the candidates in addition to our guide. So we really want registration is great, but I think we're all here because we want people to turn out. We want people to turn out in large numbers, and we want people to be educated and feel good about the choices they make. So that's why registration is an important part. Yes, there's sort of a fallback if they want to just show up and vote, but I still think teach the people you're going to be sharing the message with to get people to register so we can get them the information that they need to be educated voters. One other thing they should ask you, if people do choose to vote by mail, that the vote by mail ballots go out 29 days before the election. So for March and early February, they're going to see they're gonna see a packet that comes out. It's like it was a green envelope before. It's probably gonna be green and white now. It has stars on it. Be on the lookout for official election. It says, there's a little logo that says official election mail, because believe it or not, we've had a lot of people who, they'll just throw it away like it's a, I'm not like that 20th, you should apply for this free credit card. People just toss mail pretty easily now. So we have a lot of people who, and this is totally cool, but they'll contact us. They'll say, I never got my vote by mail ballot. Can you send me another one? So we don't ask questions. We don't say, oh, did you throw it away? Were you not paying attention? But we just simply send them another one. Or we'll have people who they vote first thing in the morning and they spill coffee on their ballot. And they're just like, oh, well, can you send me another ballot? We're happy to do that. We can do that up to 7 days before the election. So one other thing you can tell people, and it might not come up in your initial conversations, but it might come up as we get closer to election time, is when you're actually marking the ballot, it's okay if you make a mistake, you can just cross it out and circle the one you want. Or do something that shows your intention. Because I would really like to have this group come out one time to see how we adjudicate. And I think, Susan, you've seen this, where we interpret what the voter really wanted to help to. Our machines will catch when people make mistakes like that, and then we have our staff will determine what the voter was intending to do. So instead of having to ask for a new ballot, we can interpret and give the voter the benefit of the doubt and make their vote accurate.
Julia had a question.
Oh, I was just gonna say, because I pre-registered 3 months before turning 18.
Mm-hmm.
So when I turn 18, do I have to register again?
You're good.
Okay.
You're good. And that's a new program we have in the state where if you come across folks who are, when you're going door to door in your houses, if you come across like students who are 16 or 17, and we allow for pre-registration here in the state of California, which basically is the exact same version, exact same flavor of the voter registration that 18 and up do, but they just have to note that they're not 18 yet. And what happens is, as soon as you turn 18, then we process that in our system. So you'll get at that point you'll get a notification card from us that says that that you're now on our voter roll.
So they really don't need to have IDs if they don't have it. With just the social security number, they could register, pre-register.
It's either or.
Well, I was just thinking that if they have to have their IDs first and then register, it will take longer, but that way it's easier, faster.
Right.
Good.
Right. So I'm trying to think if there's anything.
I would just excuse me, follow up on that and say that what if you get any kind of question like that, sorry, I don't know what happened. We have found that it's really good to know the cocovote.us because if I were talking to you and you have a phone that can go online, or I'll have my phone that can go online, I can check right then and tell you you're good, registered.
And
so we do that a lot,
kind
of constantly, especially depending on the age group and if it looks like their first time.
And one other thing that you mentioned too, as far as, like I mentioned, as far as how we really try to be accommodating for voters, especially whether it's the polling. And in this instance, what I was going to say with the polling place is ballots are in English, Spanish, and Chinese. So those are language that the federal government mandates that we include on the ballots. And at the polling place, if we have folks who come in and they speak Korean, Tagalog, or Vietnamese, we also have, they can use we have a device there where they can use, they can use it to mark their ballot, and then once they're done making all their picks, it prints it out for them. That also has audio information in those other languages I mentioned. Wow. So it's really trying to be accommodating for people, and hopefully, especially, I know you guys are, in Concord, we're targeting a large, like, Latino population that we want to get out the vote. It's going to be especially important to them, you know, encourage them that this is a very accommodating, open process, and that it's important that they participate. Yeah.
What about the difference between like, population, election and like college election?
Population election versus
Like-
a college
Like a
election?
popular vote versus an electoral college?
Like,
Yes.
how like some people like say, they look at it how like, they don't think like the popular.
I get what
vote
you're saying,
sometimes-
okay. Most of the elections that we have, and that we're gonna have here, especially at the local level, is winner take all. So it's popular vote, it's just whoever gets the most votes wins. And as far as, I mean, I know for the presidential election, the presidential election's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're talking about, and that's one where, I mean, if you're talking to people, really, I don't want to say that the presidential vote in California doesn't. I'm trying to figure out where I want to
It's
go.
a winner take all by state,
It's winner take all by state, yeah.
and that's the best.
Can you explain
Answer.
a little bit more?
It means whichever candidate wins each state by popular vote, except
Right.
for Maine and Nebraska and some other weirder ones. It's a winner take all. You get all the electoral votes.
Right. So in California, if whoever wins for president in California gets 54 of those.
We get
It's
55.
55 of the state's points. So it's sort of like, if you think about it as a point system, all the states in the United States together equal out so it's like what, 530?
Yes.
530
535 total. You need 272
to win.
to win. More than 272 to win.
So it's sort of like,
Yes.
yeah, the electoral college.
Yep.
So that's a unique system, and that was put in place way back at the beginning of our country. So it was supposed to be so big states couldn't always determine the president,
Yes.
or some states couldn't always determine the president. It was supposed to. I think I'm.
That's pretty much it. They were trying to balance it.
So now there are some questions about, and generally speaking, that held true. So usually, it used to be based on how things were used to work out. The person who had the most electoral college votes would also have the most total votes, the popular vote.
Yeah.
But now, just because of how the things are changing a little bit as far as population and turnout, there's a little bit of a discrepancy where somebody can win the electoral college and the popular vote doesn't match with that.
Exactly.
So where that conversation goes, that's really beyond my office, that's beyond even the state. That's a sort of a national discussion that needs to go on.
That it
Something that
needs
might-
to be.
Yeah, well, something that might actually impact us, though.
Electoral college, that's a relic from the past.
Well, do we do any ranked choice voting in Contra Costa County?
We don't do
Okay,
that.
good. So it doesn't impact you or
No.
us in Concord thus far.
No, so
Good.
so you probably won't get that question coming up, but it's a really good one
Okay.
to have. And what else?
I think that's it. I mean, you've given us enough information for us to get started and go out there. I feel as good as I'm gonna get
Yeah, I
before
mean,
doing it, I think.
You're gonna run into, the last thing I can say, you're gonna run into people who already have, they might have some preconceived notions that hopefully with this information you can kind of debunk a little bit. I mean, a lot of people, one of the things that we always deal with is what's going on nationally too. Like when you hear things where there are states that have, where they require ID cards to vote, or there are other things that they have there that are restricted for people. In California, we're pretty good about making the process as inclusive as we can. So I think that's something that's, the other thing I should mention is that if you're mailing back a vote by mail, as long as you mail it back is postmarked by election day. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm not going to be able to mail it by election day, like the weekend before, that's how it used to be. Now it's up to election day. So.
I know that many of our, I'm gonna say, Spanish-speaking population believe so much in the news.
Yeah.
Is one of the resources for some of our population. How you make make sure that your office address or brings that information to the Spanish channels, so our population
Right. No, it's a good question, and that's one of the
can
things.
get the real information, not from all over the.
Well, that's the tough
The
thing
country.
too. That's the tough thing, especially now. Like you have a lot more people who they'll share and post things on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. They'll read something and they'll share it with people, and then it becomes the truth. And this is not just elections. This is
Everything.
all sorts of everything.
In general.
In general, yeah, I know, and that's one of the things too. What we try to do, first of all, before I get into what we do with the Spanish, we try to tell our own story. What I mean by that is we try to do a lot of posts, especially using videos, using and really trying to solidify the partnerships we have in the community with our partners to share what we do, as far as how the vote by mail process works, like that example, how our polling places works. Events like this are really great for us because hopefully by me sharing this with you, you can share that with others, and it helps people have more trust in what we do. Specifically to Spanish-speaking television, we have when we send out stuff, we send out stuff to the local reporters for Univision and Telemundo, and we work with them quite a bit around election time. They'll come down to the office to do a lot when we have things going on, especially if we have important deadlines that are coming, like the voter registration deadline, or they want to come and see the process in action, or like the vote by mail campaign I was telling you about. Like they're trying to share that because it's important. And I know culturally speaking, the Spanish-speaking population generally, they're a little bit more hesitant to really jump on board and participate. And how do we break that? We break that by being open and being transparent and establishing trust. So
For some people, that is one of the very trusted
right.
resources.
Yeah.
And so if they cannot get to trainings like this,
Right.
they will believe what they're seeing on television.
And one of the things is, I mean, the one thing that I've learned both when I was a newspaper reporter and now is the more you participate and you make your voice heard and you show up and people who are in office realize that you are a force to be reckoned with, the more you'll see more people trying to cater and reach out to the community and that sort of thing. So that's why it's important, especially for that population, to register, to get involved, to turn out, because if you start seeing that different, it doesn't have to be that, whoever, if you start seeing them start turning out more, that's going to make people take notice. So that's one of the things when I used to cover city councils in Antioch, it was remarkable to me. It's like whoever had the most people in the seats generally got the vote. Generally got people to they were talking about building a bigger Walmart. There were more Walmart employees than there were people who didn't want that. And that's the way they ended up going. So it's sort of a simplistic answer, but there's probably some background truth to it too.
You know, it's very important to listen to different sources of news. You just listen to one source, you're never going to learn anything. So it's important to tell the people, listen to different sources.
I agree.
And then you come down to your own conclusion.
Yeah.
Because people tend to listen to one source, and they don't know anything else.
Yep.
But imagine if you listen just to Fox News, what are you going to get in your head?
Sure. No, it's a great point.
You just have a right-wing propaganda,
Yeah.
and that's what you become. So it's important to consider the source of the news that you listen to.
Yes, I agree. I think we definitely agree on that.
Yeah.
And pulling from multiple sources too, but you still have to check the credibility.
Yes. Who is this person who's writing this article?
Right. So
What is this ideology, political ideology? Huh?
yeah.
And that's.
You can also tell if you look at that story, like, do they quote both sides?
Yes.
If it's just one side,
Yeah, one-sided.
and you mentioned Fox News, let's be real, The left side does the same thing.
Yes.
There are sources from
It's
all
both.
different.
This
who are
applies
trying
to, this applies to both.
Yeah.
Susan, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that if you contact us, we have something called pros and cons.
Uh-huh.
And this is the ballot measures. And what we do is we get requests from groups, and we have now contacts of Spanish